Well, hi, and welcome to Glitch 2600. Who am I? I'm Brian, aka Glitch, your friendly host through all things geekery. And geekery are just those fun electronic toys that you have that you want to learn more about. Whether it's computers, photography, videography, mobile devices, I'm here to make technology a little bit easier for you. And you're here for a Glitch Byte, part of Vlogmas 2020. Vlogmas 2020 is a way through all of December for us content creators to create something new for you. So I'm doing bites, which are our bite-size bits of tech information that you can consume in 15 minutes or less. We're going to continue that on through the end of the year, and then we'll be back to a regular schedule instead of every day. So we'll be doing those at least once a week, if not twice after that. So let's talk about what we're doing today. Today, we're going to be going through how to create bootable media to install Windows 10 onto your PC, Mac, whichever. So with that, let's say your hard drive died on your PC laptop and you need to get a new hard drive in there. You don't have a backup, don't have a way to bring it on there, or you don't have access to your backup yet. This would be how you could go to another computer, download this one tool, create the disk or a bootable CD, and then install that on a new hard drive. If you're on a Mac, you could use this to install your stuff onto bootcamp, or if you use VMware Fusion or Parallels or Workstation, you can use it to install it on a virtual machine. So with that, you're going to need a couple things. If you're doing it to a USB, then you need a USB that's at least 8 gigs in size, if not a little bit more. And the faster it is, the faster it can go. But keep in mind, you can get an 8 gig one. Heck, you can get 16 gig ones for under $10 nowadays. So you want to start with that. Get one of those. Otherwise, you can go to CDs, but let's face it, a lot of laptops and machines don't have CD-ROM drives anymore. This will still work for it, but USB is the way to go. Having said that, the next thing you're going to want to bring up is, it's in the description, but go to this URL down below. You go there, you'll be able to download the Microsoft Media Creation Tool. And that's important because we're going to bring that up to show you. If we go over here, that's what that page looks like when you go there. You'll hit where you can hit download tool now. It'll download to your machine, and then it'll ask for a disk that you can blank out. And that's what we're going to show you right now. I went ahead and pre-recorded it earlier because it takes around 30 minutes to run, 30 to 40. And I didn't think you guys wanted to watch as a clock goes through. So let's speed this up in more real time and show you what that disk does. So here's my virtual machine that I run VMware Fusion on my machine or on my Mac. And I used it to create a disk to repair a friend's laptop for his lady friend. And they need a little bit of help. The hard drive was wiped out. It wasn't working well. So we had to wipe it and start over. And, that was their choice. So I had to go and create this media. So I got a disk I could wipe out, plugged it into the computer, downloaded that tool that I mentioned, and this was me launching it. So it'll tell you it's got to get a few things ready. We're going to skip ahead. I did cut some parts out, but this part I didn't get to that area, so we'll just skip ahead. You'll see it'll ask, hey, do you accept the EULA? We're going to say yes. And then it's going to say, hey, here, we'll go back a little bit there. It's going to ask that question. Are you upgrading this PC or creating installation media? Well, I'm not upgrading this one. This one's running Windows 10. Now, there's a newer version. I could do this to do stuff a little bit differently, make another installation on there. But in this case, I want to create installation media, and that's where you'll see it says USB flash drive, DVD, or ISO file for another machine. Well, I chose create installation media. And you'll see what that does right after. So there you go. You can see I selected now. And it'll ask for language and then architecture. Nowadays, most new computers need 64-bit, but you see where you can choose and get both. And then this is where you can choose USB or ISO file. So USB is just like it says, can create on here, or you can create an ISO file, which is a self-contained file, installation file, that you can burn to a DVD. So you can use your burner software to do it, or someone else's at that point. Or if you're using VMware Fusion or another type of virtual machine setup, you could use that to boot into it. There's a boot option in those, and we can cover that if you're interested, if you guys have that question in the future. But I still like going to the USB because even if you are doing this virtually, you can always tell it to boot from a USB device. So there's two different ways. If you're running off of an SSD, then yes, you can go faster by using the ISO, but I'm assuming you're going to want to build this onto a new PC and not using a virtual setup. So I chose USB. You click next. It'll ask for the drive. I obviously didn't want to put it on my C drive, so this was my E, which I showed and verified there that, hey, here's my E drive, and it's blank right now. I didn't have anything on it really, or had a little bit of junk, but it said, hey, you want to progress through there and erase this. Now you're going to see it sit for just a little bit, but I went ahead and jumped forward, so you'll see it pause, and then around this mark, it just jumps up because I only showed it in little increments afterwards as I was recording, because like I said, it took about 30 minutes to run, and I wasn't running this on my fastest virtual machine. This is just running a sliver on my Mac, so it only had about 2 gigs of RAM, one processor in it, or 2 processors, so it's not a beefy machine I was running this on. So 30 minutes isn't really that bad. So you can see where it kind of progresses through. Once it gets through there, it's going to go, hey, do you want to verify? And that's where, well, it won't ask you. It'll just say verifying your download. And that's where it'll go through and then start the creation media. That verifying takes only about 3 to 4 minutes tops. And then as you see it pop up, this is more of that, I would say about a 10, 15 minute part of the phase of it doing. But you'll see it'll just keep kind of jumping forward. From time to time during this phase, if it's plugged in via USB, you'll see it pop on and off. And you'll see, hey, your machine will start going, did you want to do some of this USB? Did you not? Just ignore it. Don't mess with anything while it's doing it. In fact, just let your machine go during this. The only thing I did was make sure it didn't go to sleep. I just have a paranoid tech background of when a computer goes to sleep, it seems that things don't work well if it's doing a process. A lot of times these types of things will stop your computer from going to sleep, but I'm paranoid. It just means I walk up every 5-6 minutes and move the mouse to make it not go to sleep. But you'll see after it got done, it popped up and it'll go down into the USB. Now it renamed it, and you'll see it made all of the boot files, that you'll see there that are needed for the machine to boot up. And then the EFI, which is part of that part for the BIOS to talk in and help make that a bootable disk. So once done, I can eject it, and then there it goes. And that pretty much finishes that out. So once I'm done, I'm left with this, which is just a nice little boot disk that I can put into the side of my laptop and then reboot. So at that point, most laptops are configured nowadays just to auto boot from USB if it sees it. But worst case, you can hit escape or F1, F2, or F10 on there. It'll normally tell you as it's coming up really quick, right when you hit power and it's that black screen for a little bit. That's called the BIOS, the basic input output system, or basic input operating system is what some people have called it, but it used to be input output system. So at that point, it'll pop up and you'll see really quick that says press escape for boot options or F1 for boot options. Most of the time it's escape, F2, or F10. Every now and then I've seen an F1 on there. It's never F8 because that's an old Microsoft key that we'd use to, it's not old, but it's what we'd use to boot up different Windows options. So a lot of times you'll see it there. Sometimes you'll see an F12, but most of the time it's going to be in those first 3. So whenever I don't know, I just go escape, F1, F2, and I just hit them in order. And it'll pop out if I don't see it fast enough. And then in there, it'll say, do you want to boot from USB? You could also go into your BIOS options, but that could be a video for another day. Or if you have problems with that, just comment on here and I'll find them and I will help you with your specific BIOS if you need it. But that's the trick. Once it's from there and you're booting off of it, it'll boot up. It'll take it a couple minutes. It'll sit there at a blinking, cursor for a second. And so don't think it's not doing anything. But then you'll see the Windows logo show up. It could take anywhere up to 3-4 minutes for that to show up. So don't freak out and think it's not working. As long as you have a blank cursor and it doesn't say operating system not found, then it's working. If you see operating system not found, then it's not working. But as long as you see that blinking cursor, it's working. And then you'll see the windows pop up. You'll have your mouse. And that's where you can start going through the installation. And that's pretty simple. Walks you right through and says, hey, do you want to go here? Or what's the language? What's that? Through. At one point, you'll be asked which hard drive you want to go to. If you see your hard drive, it'll be partition 1 or disk 0 normally if you're going to your main hard drive. If it says that it can't write there, then just click the format button. Format will erase everything, and it will tell you that. It'll erase everything on your main hard drive. But if it's not working, that's just because it's not an NTFS format. And that's just the language of how it needs to talk on there. And so it'll make that new partition, and then it'll start the installation. Once it goes through, it'll make it so far through and say, I'm going to reboot. That's where you got to remove this, because if you leave it in there, you'll just keep going into a boot cycle where it'll say, hey, do you want to install Windows? And you'll go, yes. And you'll install it again. And then boot back up and you go, yes. So once it reboots, because it's being dumb, remove the USB and it'll continue through. And that's where you'll need to plug it in either to a hardwired network or wireless. Keep in mind, if it's a newer laptop or certain types, it might not show up on wireless at first. And that's where having a network cable that you can hard plug in pretty much always works. All those network, the hard code ones almost always detect. This one, when I worked on it, didn't see my local Glitch network on the wireless, so I had to run an Ethernet cable to it. Once I was done, it did its automatic Windows update check, and it brought the wireless card back into check, and then it saw my wireless network. So you do that a few times and set up all your settings, and you're good to go. So like I said, you can use that both to rebuild a laptop or a desktop on a PC, or you can use that same technique and the same type of stuff to build it into a bootcamp partition so you can run Windows on your Mac, or you can put it into a virtual machine like I use Windows or VMware Fusion, which allows me to run Windows on my Mac, which is what you saw a little bit ago. Or you could use Parallels. They're just a competitor to VMware. I'm an old school tech, and I've used both, and just I've always been a VMware person. So that's my choice. Parallels makes an equally great, in some cases, people might say better product. In some cases, I think VMware, because I work on VMware servers, which allowed me to move the files between them. But that's how to do it. And if you have questions, please just let me know. Comment on the channel. We'll see it, and I'll be happy to answer any more of those questions for you. And how do you do that? Well, you do that by coming and subscribing. Use that link down below. Go to the page or use this QR code right there. If you're watching this on your laptop, then hold up your smart device, switch it to camera mode, hover over that QR code, and it'll go, hey, do you want to go to this URL, which is that one down there? You'll say yes, and then once you get there, you can click subscribe and then ring the bell, because it's just fun to ring a bell anyway. But ringing the bell says, hey, notify me when Brian, aka Glitch, goes online or has an announced event, and then it'll let you know so you don't miss the next one. And then otherwise, you can also join us on Facebook. Just go there. It's the same type of party, just not as good with the notifications. But either way, you comment on either one. We'll see it, and happy to answer those questions. I hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed. And we'll be back tomorrow with another Glitch Byte. And we'll see you